High Inspector Zix 427 had evaluated 17,842 species throughout their distinguished career. None of them had ever made their tentacles writhe in existential dread quite like humans. As you can see, Inspector, we've made some improvements to the standard fusion core design, Dr. Amanda Brooks said, walking casually through what should have been a lethal radiation zone. The inspector's sensors screamed warnings through their neural interface, while the human strolled along, protected only by what looked like a hodgepodge of materials that shouldn't work together. Impossible, Zix 427 whispered through their universal translator. The radiation levels here would kill most species in seconds. Amanda smiled, tapping her chest where a small device hummed quietly. Oh, that's the beauty of our latest innovation. We found out cancer's actually pretty useful if you point it in the right direction. The radiation triggers control mutations that our nanites guide into creating living radiation shields. Neat, right? The inspector's documentation drone almost crashed into a wall. They had to replay the statement 3 times before accepting that they'd heard it correctly. Humans hadn't just ignored the fundamental laws of biological safety. They'd turned cancer into a survival mechanism. But the risk assessment protocols, Zix 427 began. We used those as a starting point, Amanda interrupted, her eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. Great guidelines, really. But then we thought, why stop there? I mean, if you're going to get cancer anyway, might as well make it work for you. The inspector watched in horror as several engineers in an adjacent chamber casually ate their lunch next to an experimental quantum drive. One of them had propped his feet up on what appeared to be a containment unit for dark matter. Should they be doing that? Zix 427 asked, already knowing they wouldn't like the answer. Probably not. Amanda shrugged. But we found out the quantum field actually stabilizes better when exposed to organic material. Something about the chaos of living systems creating a more natural quantum state. Plus, Jeff makes amazing sandwiches. Jeff, the engineer with his feet on the dark matter containment unit, waved cheerfully. Want one? It's pastrami. The inspector politely declined, using every ounce of their diplomatic training to not point out that casual exposure to quantum fields was listed as Class 7 forbidden knowledge in the Galactic Security Protocol. As they continued the tour, Amanda proudly showed off more improvements that made the inspector's species equivalent of blood run cold. Humans hadn't just achieved faster-than-light travel, they'd done it by literally punching holes in space-time. Because, in Amanda's words, the math said we couldn't. So we figured there must be a workaround. And this, Amanda said, pointing to a massive structure through the observatory window, is our solar system's transport network. We call it the web. The inspector stared at the impossibility before them. Humans had transformed their entire solar system into an interconnected network of habitats, research stations, and engineering projects. Ships zipped between planets along paths that somehow bent space into more convenient shapes. Those routes look unstable, Zix 427 noted, trying to maintain professional composure. Oh, they are. Amanda agreed cheerfully. That's why we have the auto-repair drones. They patch space back up when it gets too wobbly. We based the system on how our bodies heal cuts, just applied it to space-time instead. That evening, in the safety of their quarantine pod, Zix 427 began their report to the Galactic Council. For the first time in their career, they found themselves struggling to maintain objective language. Humanity represents an unprecedented threat to galactic safety standards, not through malice or military might, but through their fundamental inability to accept that something cannot or should not be done. They do not solve problems. They dare problems to stop them. They have not just violated our understanding of physics, they have convinced physics to apologize and try harder to accommodate their needs. The inspector paused, adding a personal note. Most concerning is their tendency to share these violations of natural law freely, as though teaching others to break reality is an admirable goal. They call it open source. I call it the beginning of the end of predictable physics. As they prepared to transmit the report, a notification pinged on their neural interface. Dr. Brooks had sent them what humans called a thank you gift, a detailed explanation of how their radiation-eating cancer treatment could be adapted to the inspector species. 6427 added one final line to their report: quarantine is pointless. They would just take it as a challenge. The Galactic Council's emergency session began with Ambassador Krell X9 vibrating so rapidly that their ceremonial robes produced a high-pitched whine. 3 other council members appeared to be experiencing similar effects, their various appendages twitching in ways their species weren't designed for. Would anyone care to explain? Council Elder Voss rumbled. Why 4 of our most distinguished members are currently operating at triple their normal metabolic rate? Lieutenant James Miller stood at attention before the council, somehow managing to look both completely respectful and slightly amused. A standard-issue thermal container sat innocently on the podium beside him. Sir, I was simply sharing a traditional human diplomatic beverage during our cultural exchange meeting. A beverage. Elder Voss repeated slowly, watching as Ambassador Krell X9 accidentally achieved liftoff. A simple beverage did this. Coffee, sir. Specifically, my special morning blend. Triple shot espresso with a touch of hazelnut. The council chamber erupted in chaos as Ambassador Krell X9 ricocheted off the ancient ceremonial dome, leaving iridescent skid marks on the 1,000-year-old artwork. Do you mean to tell me? Elder Voss continued, maintaining remarkable composure as another council member began speaking in mathematical equations, that you introduced a known stimulant to multiple high-ranking officials without warning. James shifted uncomfortably. In my defense, sir, they really insisted on trying it. Ambassador Krell X9 actually had 4 cups. 5, the ambassador corrected, zooming past. It was magnificent. I can see through time. The council's chief medical officer, Dr. Zenva, burst into the chamber, waving a datapad frantically. Elders, the productivity reports from the diplomatic quarter are unprecedented. The data showed a 300% increase in diplomatic document processing, 6 peace treaties that had been stalled for decades completed in hours, and one particularly enthusiastic junior diplomat who had reorganized the entire galactic archives using what they described as a really cool new system I just thought of 5 minutes ago. That would be the coffee plus energy drink combination, James admitted. I tried to stop that one, but they were very insistent about going beyond normal limits. Elder Voss's eye stalks swiveled to focus on a new disturbance. In the adjacent chamber, the distinctive sound of a quantum reactor spooling up could be heard, a very irregular, very accelerated spooling up. Lieutenant Miller, Voss said with remarkable calm, please tell me none of your coffee made its way to the engineering section. Before James could answer, a junior engineer burst in, their tentacles tangled in excitement. Elders, we've achieved 200% efficiency in the quantum core. Also, colors taste amazing now. The following week's official council report described what became known as the coffee incident in carefully diplomatic terms. Through the introduction of a seemingly harmless human stimulant, multiple departments experienced what can only be described as a productivity singularity. While the immediate effects were chaotic, we cannot ignore the results. 14 major diplomatic agreements resolved, 3 new forms of quantum mathematics discovered, and the entire galactic transportation network optimized by what one affected engineer described as really obviously better routes that were there all along. A classified addendum, sealed at the highest security level, added, most concerning is the growing demand among council staff for this coffee. Multiple species have begun attempting to cultivate their own supplies, with several already planning what they call coffee shop franchises. The human concept of productivity enhancement is spreading like a virus. Lieutenant Miller was officially reprimanded for the incident. Unofficially, he received 16 requests for coffee bean seeds from various council members, 3 marriage proposals, and 1 very confused quantum physicist who claimed Miller's coffee had helped them see the true structure of reality. The final note in the council's report, added by Elder Voss himself, simply read, "The true horror is not that humans created such a substance. It's that they consider this morning fuel mild enough for daily consumption. What then do they consider actually dangerous?" Ambassador Krull X9 eventually came down from their coffee high. They immediately submitted a request for Earth to be classified as a Class 1 agricultural resource world, citing coffee as a strategic galactic resource. They also installed an espresso machine in their office, though they agreed to limit themselves to 1 cup per solar rotation. The quantum reactor, surprisingly, continued to operate at 200% efficiency. Nobody could explain why, but the engineering team insisted it ran better when they talked to it about their feelings, preferably over a nice cup of coffee. The Galactic Academy's Grand Lecture Hall had never been so full. Distinguished professors from 1,000 worlds sat in anticipation, their various sensory organs focused on the simple wooden podium where Professor Michael Thompson was setting up what appeared to be a toaster. Today, Professor Thompson began, running a hand through his perpetually disheveled gray hair. "We're going to discuss why everything you know about engineering is wrong." A wave of multilingual muttering swept through the audience. Dean Xylophone, as humans had dubbed them, unable to pronounce their actual name, shifted uncomfortably in their hover seat. "Now your standard engineering approach is to design systems that work perfectly," Thompson continued, plugging in the toaster. "And that's your first mistake, because according to Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong will go wrong." He held up a piece of bread. "Take this simple earth toaster. Your engineering would focus on perfect heat distribution, optimal browning algorithms, safety protocols. Our approach: we assume someone's going to try to toast a whole chicken in it." The dean's translation matrix struggled with the concept. Why would anyone? "Because they can," Thompson interrupted cheerfully. "Trust me, if you build a device, humans will use it in ways you never imagined. So we designed for chaos." He proceeded to demonstrate by shoving what appeared to be a metal fork into the toaster. Instead of the expected electrical disaster, the toaster simply powered down, ejected the fork, and displayed a holographic message. "Nice try, Dave. Unplug me first next time." "You see," Thompson grinned, "we don't just plan for things going wrong. We plan for human nature. This toaster has more fail-safes than your standard quantum core because we know someone, somewhere, will eventually try to toast antimatter in it." The audience watched in fascination as Thompson proceeded to demonstrate the toaster's various safety features, including a small fire suppression system, an AI that analyzed foreign objects, and what he called the ex-wife protocol, for when someone tried to use it in the bath. "But this is just the beginning," Thompson continued, wheeling out a larger device. "This is what happens when we apply Murphy's Law to faster-than-light travel." The next hour was a blur of demonstrations that left several theoretical physicists in need of medical attention. Thompson showed how human ships were designed to survive impacts with objects that supposedly couldn't exist, navigate through mathematical impossibilities, and handle what he called the Thursday scenario, when everything goes wrong simultaneously. "You see, the universe has a sense of humor," Thompson explained while his demonstration engine purposely malfunctioned in 15 different ways and still somehow worked. "And that humor is usually malicious. So we design as if the universe is actively trying to kill us. Because it usually is." A young graduate student raised their appendage. "But Professor, doesn't this approach create unnecessarily complex systems?" "Unnecessarily," Thompson laughed. "Let me tell you about the time a human colony ship survived a black hole, because someone installed a backup system for the backup system's backup, powered by a hamster wheel. The hamster was mechanical. Of course, we're not monsters. By the end of the lecture, the Academy's engineering faculty had to face an uncomfortable truth. Human technology wasn't crude. It was designed for a reality far more chaotic than anyone had imagined. The dean's official report to the council included this observation. Their entire engineering philosophy is based on the assumption that reality itself is out to get them. The truly terrifying part is how often this approach proves correct. Within weeks, the Academy's curriculum began to change. Students started asking uncomfortable questions like, what if someone uses this quantum accelerator to make toast? And shouldn't we add a safety protocol for dance parties? Professor Thompson's lecture notes became the most copied document in Academy history. The council tried to classify them as restricted knowledge, only to discover that humans had already uploaded them to something called YouTube with a catchy title, Top 10 Ways to Engineer for the Worst Day of Your Life. The final blow came when several prominent alien manufacturers began advertising their products as human-proofed, a term that quickly became the galaxy's highest safety rating. As for the toaster, it was enshrined in the Academy's museum, where it continued to cheerfully prevent visitors from electrocuting themselves while making breakfast. The placard beneath it read, "First contact with human engineering philosophy. May the universe have mercy on us all." The Centaurian Empire's medical council had never been defeated by a disease before. Yet here they were, watching their best minds fail to stop a plague that had already quarantined 17 colony worlds. The infection adapted faster than their most advanced AI could formulate responses. That's when 12-year-old Emily Davidson, working on her Girl Scout medical science badge, raised her hand during an emergency broadcast. "Excuse me," she said, her gap-toothed smile visible, even through the holographic interface. "But have you tried chicken soup?" Dr. Xylth9, head of the Centaurian Plague Response Team, stared at the small human in her green vest covered in colorful patches. "Young human, this is a Class 4 adaptive pathogen. It's not something that can be solved with liquid poultry." Emily shrugged, adjusting her glasses. "Well, my grandma's chicken soup cures everything. And I was reading about these things called bacteriophages for my badge. What if we combined them?" The medical council exchanged glances. A junior researcher, fresh from studying Earth's medical history, nervously raised a tentacle. "Actually, humans have a history of accidental medical breakthroughs. And their young are often more creative. My project's due next week," Emily added helpfully. "And this would look really good in my presentation." What followed was either the most brilliant or most terrifying example of human problem-solving the galaxy had ever witnessed. Emily, connected via hologram to the Empire's most advanced research facility, directed the creation of what she called Grandma's Super Special Healing Soup 2.0. First, she explained, reading from her Girl Scout manual, "We need to make the soup. Grandma says, the secret is love, but also garlic. Lots of garlic." The Centaurian scientists watched in fascination as Emily walked them through her grandmother's recipe, which apparently had been curing everything since the old country. When one scientist pointed out that chicken proteins wouldn't be compatible with Centaurian biology, Emily simply suggested they use whatever space chicken you have. "Now for the cool part," Emily said, pulling out her science fair project notes. "We take these phages, they're like tiny virus hunters, and we make them love the soup as much as white blood cells do. It's like teaching a picky eater to love vegetables." Dr. Xylth9 found themselves translating complex viral engineering concepts into terms involving cookie recipes and pizza toppings. Somehow, it made perfect sense. The resulting treatment was a masterpiece of accidental brilliance. The modified phages, carried in a broth of bioengineered space chicken soup, didn't just fight the plague. They turned it into a beneficial probiotic. C. Emily beamed as the first test results came in. The phages are like tiny health teachers, showing the bad germs how to be good. Plus, the soup makes you feel better while they work. The Galactic Medical Association had to create 3 new categories just to classify the treatment: folk medicine, weaponized, accidentally revolutionary treatments, solutions that shouldn't work but do anyway, human origin. Emily got her badge. She also received the highest civilian honor the Centaurian Empire could bestow, though she was more excited about the extra credit her science teacher gave her. The real impact came later, when the galactic medical community realized 2 terrifying facts. 1. Human children were just as capable of reality-breaking solutions as adults too. There was an entire organization, the Girl Scouts, teaching young humans to make the world a better place through creative problem-solving. The Council added a new warning to their human assessment files. Caution. Their young are already learning our weaknesses. They call it earning badges. Emily's grandmother just added the new treatment to her recipe book under chicken soup for the alien soul, right next to her famous cure-all casserole. When asked by the Galactic News Network how she felt about revolutionizing xenomedicine, Emily simply said, "Does this mean I can start working on my space veterinary badge? I have some ideas about dragon dentistry." The Medical Council immediately classified all information about Earth's pet care practices as too dangerous for public knowledge. They'd learned their lesson about underestimating human children and their merit badges. Commander Jennifer Martinez was having a really bad day. Standing before the Galactic Council's emergency session, she tried to explain why uploading Earth's knowledge database to the Galactic Network seemed like a good idea at the time. It was meant to be a gesture of goodwill, she said, watching as the holographic displays around the chamber showed various crisis points erupting across the galaxy. Wikipedia is just a basic encyclopedia. Basic. Elder Voss's eye stalks quivered in disbelief. Your basic encyclopedia has caused 3 scientific revolutions, 5 cultural upheavals, and 1 very confused religious awakening in the past solar rotation alone. On the main screen, a group of Rigelian scholars were engaged in what humans called a wiki war over the proper classification of their own species. The edit history had reached 17,000 pages. The talk pages, groaned another council member, their tentacles wrapped around a stress ball. Why did you include the talk pages? Jennifer winced. The discussion sections of Wikipedia articles had proven to be particularly infectious. Alien species were discovering the joy of arguing about minor details with complete strangers across vast distances of space. Did you know? A junior analyst interrupted, that 27 different species have already adopted the human concept of citation needed as a formal diplomatic response. The situation in the scientific community was even more chaotic. The entire Betelgeusian Physics Institute had gone into lockdown after discovering Earth's fringe science articles. They'd emerged 3 days later with a working time machine built from household appliances and questionable mathematics. They're calling it garage science, the security chief reported. Apparently, if you can't build it in your living space with parts from a local vendor, it's not really innovation. The cultural impact was perhaps the most severe. The council chamber's screens showed various alien species attempting to recreate Earth memes, with results that ranged from hilarious to mildly traumatic. The cat videos, Jennifer admitted, may have been a mistake. A mistake. Elder Voss gestured to a report. The feline appreciation societies have spread to 47 systems. The hive mind of Sector 7 has started collecting actual cats. But the real crisis came from an unexpected source. The editing system itself. Aliens had embraced the concept of collaborative knowledge building with alarming enthusiasm. New articles were being created at a rate that threatened to overload the galactic network. "Look at this," a technical advisor said, pulling up a random sample. "Someone has created a detailed article about the chemical composition of their breakfast, complete with peer reviews and a heated discussion about the proper temperature for morning beverages." Jennifer tried to look on the bright side. "At least they're learning to document everything." "They're documenting things that haven't happened yet," the advisor wailed. 3 species have developed precognitive research methods just to get their citations in first. The council was forced to create a new department just to handle what they called information contamination. Its first task was to explain why not everything needed a list of lists article. And then, Elder Voss said with what might have been a sigh, "There's the issue of your April Fool's articles." Jennifer buried her face in her hands. Several species had taken the concept of deliberate misinformation as entertainment very seriously, leading to an annual galaxy-wide event that the Council had failed to prevent. The final report on the Wikipedia incident was itself immediately added to Wikipedia, complete with discussion pages about whether the report about Wikipedia should be on Wikipedia. The Council eventually gave up trying to contain the spread of human-style information sharing. Instead, they created a new position, Galactic Wiki Manager. Their job was simply to ensure that at least some of the information remained vaguely accurate. Commander Martinez was punished by being assigned to teach a course on human internet culture to alien diplomats. Her first lesson, Why You Shouldn't Read the Comments, became required study for all galactic civil servants. As for Wikipedia itself, it continued to grow. The article List of Things Humans Probably Shouldn't Have Taught the Galaxy became one of the most edited pages in history, second only to Reasons Why Earth is Both the Best and Worst Thing to Happen to Space. Marine Corps engineer Thomas O'Reilly stared at the critically failing Arcturus Defense Network core, then at the roll of silver tape in his hand. The alien engineers around him were in various states of panic, their tentacles and appendages flailing as warning sirens blared. "Have you tried turning it off and on again?" he asked, already pulling a strip of duct tape with his teeth. Chief Engineer Zix Landa's eye stalks twisted in horror. "This is a 250,000 credit quantum-enhanced defense grid. It cannot be fixed with adhesive strips." "Watch me," Tom grinned, pulling out a can of WD-40 from his ever-present tool belt. "First rule of engineering. If it moves and shouldn't, use duct tape. If it doesn't move and should, use WD-40. The alien engineers watched in fascinated horror as Tom began what he called the Kentucky Space Fix, a complex process involving liberal applications of both products, some colorful language, and what appeared to be random percussive maintenance. "You're hitting a quantum harmonizer with a wrench," one engineer shrieked. "Nope," Tom replied cheerfully. "I'm percussively realigning its spatial references. Besides, I wrapped the wrench in duct tape first." Remarkably, the warning sirens began to quiet. The defense grid's status lights shifted from critical red to a cautious yellow, then to a surprised green. "Impossible," Zix Landa whispered, their sensors confirming that the grid was now operating at 115% efficiency. "How did you?" "The duct tape's holding the quantum field in place, while the WD-40 lets the tachyon slip through more smoothly," Tom explained, though his grin suggested he was either a genius or making it up as he went along. Neither option comforted the alien engineers. The news spread quickly through the galactic engineering community. Humans had managed to fix advanced technology with what they called ancient space agency secrets. The fact that NASA had indeed used duct tape for emergency repairs only added to the mystery. Within weeks, engineering manuals across the galaxy were being updated. The Arcturus incident, as it became known, led to a new classification of repair techniques, human-grade solutions. The Galactic Standards Committee found themselves dealing with an unprecedented situation. Engineers from various species had begun carrying what they called O'Reilly kits, collections of simple tools and materials that might come in handy. "Do you realize what you've done?" the committee chairman asked Tom during the official investigation. "The Rigelian quantum labs are using something called space tape on their antimatter containment fields." "Yeah," Tom nodded. "They asked for the specs. I sent them the link to the Duck brand website. Good folks, even if they did order it in bulk without reading the warning labels." The investigation report included several notable findings. 1. Human emergency repairs often outlasted the original equipment. 2. Simple solutions frequently outperformed complex ones. 3. The phrase "hit it till it works" had become a legitimate engineering term in 7 systems. The Galactic Engineering Academy was forced to create a new course, Practical Solutions for Impossible Problems. Tom was invited to be a guest lecturer, though his first class caused several traditional engineers to need medical attention. Sometimes, he told his stunned audience, the most advanced solution is the simplest one. Like this one time on Mars when we fixed a solar array with bubble gum and aluminum foil. The final addition to the Galactic Engineering Handbook that year was a simple note: when standard procedures fail, ask a human, but be prepared for the answer to hurt your soul. As for Tom, he became something of a legend. His famous quote about duct tape and WD-40 was enshrined in engineering halls across the galaxy, though most species added a third rule. If a human suggests a solution, double-check your insurance coverage. The Arcturus defense grid continued to operate at peak efficiency, its quantum core still held together by that first strip of duct tape. When asked why they didn't replace it with a proper fix, the maintenance team just shrugged. "The tape's working fine," they said. "Besides, we're pretty sure the grid would miss it." Admiral Rachel Winters stood on the bridge of the U.S. Yellowstone, watching the holographic display as the Silicon-based Hive fleet approached. Behind her, the combined Galactic Defense Fleet's commanders argued about proper battle protocol. With all due respect, she interrupted their debate. "We don't have time for a committee meeting. I'm implementing the kitchen sink protocol." "The what protocol?" asked High Commander Xelva, their crystalline form shimmering with confusion. "We're going to throw everything at them. And I mean everything." Rachel's grin should have triggered several galactic warning systems. "Get me engineering." Chief Engineer Sarah Rodriguez appeared on screen, already covered in grease, and wearing what appeared to be modified mining equipment. "We're ready, Admiral. Though I still think the cleaning supplies might be overkill." "There's no such thing as overkill, Chief. Just open fire, and I need to reload." Rachel turned to the alien commanders. "You might want to back your ships up a bit. This could get messy." What followed would be recorded in galactic military history as either the most brilliant or most insane battle strategy ever conceived. Probably both. First came the repurposed mining lasers, modified to fire concentrated beams of industrial cleaning solution, silicon-based life forms. Rachel had reasoned, "Let's see how they handle industrial-strength glass cleaner." Then came the modified garbage disposal units, launching what the crew called recycling with extreme prejudice. The Hive Fleet's first wave was hit with everything from compressed sports drink cans to experimental alloy scraps. "Are those ships firing soap bubbles?" one alien commander asked in disbelief. "Weaponized cleaning nanites in a soap solution," Rachel corrected. "The bubbles are just for fun and to confuse their sensors." The Hive Fleet's response to being attacked by cleaning supplies and garbage was predictable: complete confusion. Their battle computers, programmed for standard military tactics, had no protocols for dealing with what one human crew member called spring cleaning from hell. But Rachel wasn't done. Launch the secret weapon. The U.S. Yellowstone's cargo bay doors opened, releasing what looked like a swarm of modified maintenance drones. Each one was equipped with what engineering had dubbed the Mother-in-Law Special, a combination of high-frequency sound emitters and electromagnetic pulse generators. The frequency is based on my mother-in-law's voice, Sarah explained proudly. Nothing can stand up to that for long. The alien commanders watched in stunned silence as the human fleet proceeded to win a major space battle using what appeared to be the contents of a hardware store combined with several household cleaning products. The after-action report required a new category, unconventional warfare, human variant. It included such gems as weaponized cleaning supplies proved surprisingly effective against silicon-based life forms. Standard battle computers may need updates to account for completely illogical tactical options. Recommend all ships now carry supply of basic household items for potential weapons conversion. The Galactic Military Academy had to create a new course, Human Tactical Innovation. Why everything is a potential weapon. The first lesson was simply a list of things humans had successfully used in combat, with a note reading, "This list is incomplete. Humans keep inventing new ways to weaponize everyday objects." Rachel's kitchen sink strategy became required study for all command officers, though most species added a warning. Do not attempt without human supervision, or perhaps especially with human supervision. The silicon hive mind eventually recovered, but not before sending a message that was equal parts surrender and complaint. This is not how space battles are supposed to work. We request immediate cessation of whatever that noise was and the bubbly things that made our ships so uncomfortably clean. The Council created new regulations specifically prohibiting human-style strategic innovation. The regulations were immediately classified as suggestions after Rachel pointed out that rules just give humans ideas for new things to try. As for the U.S. Yellowstone's cleaning supplies budget, it was tripled, with a note in the requisition forms reading, "For tactical purposes only." Maybe. Chief Ambassador David Harrison stood before the Galactic Council, trying not to smile, as they debated Earth's new official classification. The past year's events had finally forced them to create an entirely new category. The terms are non-negotiable, Elder Voss announced, all 4 eye stalks fixed on David. Earth will be classified as an apocalypse-class innovation zone, though some of yous argued for chaos incarnate. We'll take it, David replied, already planning the new business cards. Though I think you'll find our latest project rather interesting. The council chamber's collective groan was almost musical. What have your people done now? Oh, nothing much. We just solved the dark matter problem. Turns out it's quite friendly if you ask nicely. We're taking it out for coffee next week. 3 council members fainted. 2 more began processing emergency retirement papers. Elder Voss just sighed, a sound that somehow conveyed both resignation and amusement. Of course you did, they said. And I suppose you did this with some improbable combination of household items and questionable physics. Actually, it was a 6-year-old's science fair project. She wanted to know why space was so shy and decided to make it feel more welcome. The dark matter apparently appreciated the gesture. The Council's scientific division was already adding a new warning to their files. Caution. Human children now communicating with fundamental forces of reality. Recommend universal safety protocols, though they probably won't help. The gallery screens showed various human achievements from the past year. A colony on a gas giant. They built float houses and called it Sky Venice. A perpetual motion machine. It ran on spite and coffee. A universal translator that could interpret cat meows, leading to several diplomatic incidents when the cats were brutally honest. You have to understand, David explained to the shell-shocked council, we're not trying to break reality. We just don't see why it shouldn't be more convenient. The council had finally given up on containing human innovation. Instead, they created a new department, the Human Innovation Response Team, HIRT, whose job was simply to try to keep up with human improvements to the universe. Their first report was simply titled, "Why Everything is Fine, and We're All Doomed, a Study in Human Progress." The galactic community had started adapting. Species that once prided themselves on careful, methodical progress now had human consultants on staff, though these came with warning labels. Caution: may suggest solutions that violate physics. Warning: ideas may cause existential crisis. Notice: just because it works doesn't mean we understand why. Earth's solar system had become a strange sort of pilgrimage site. Species from across the galaxy came to learn what they called the human way, a combination of reckless innovation, improbable solutions, and what one alien scholar termed the audacity to tell reality, "Hold my beer." David's personal favorite was the new Galactic Emergency Protocol. When all else fails, ask a human, though it came with a subtitle, "But be prepared for the solution to be worse than the problem." Yet, somehow work anyway. The Council's final classification of Earth included several notable points. Most likely to accidentally save the galaxy. Least likely to accept impossible as an answer. Most concerning source of innovation. Best place to get really good coffee and questionable physics. As David left the council chamber, he passed a group of young aliens playing with what looked like a quantum physics set. One of them shouted, "Watch this," a phrase that had become the most terrifying yet exciting words in the galaxy. The universe, it seemed, had finally accepted that humans were here to stay. Not because they had to, but because humans had made themselves too useful to get rid of. They were the galaxy's equivalent of that one friend who's clearly a bad influence, but somehow always saves the day. As for the worst nightmare classification, humans had already put it on t-shirts, coffee mugs, and tourist brochures. The galaxy's reaction was perfect. They bought them in bulk. After all, as David liked to say, if you can't beat them, join them. And if you can't join them, grab a coffee and watch the show.